Welcome to Deal Talk. My name is Jeffrey Veit, and this podcast is about avoiding dealer tricks and buying smart so that you save big when you purchase a car, truck, motorcycle, boat, motorhome. Yep, we talk about it every episode at some level. This week I see Hyundai and Kia have a software update to protect their easily stolen vehicles from being stolen. It's shown on TikTok. You could steal one. It was super simple. You didn't need a key or anything. It was crazy. I bring it up the point because it shows you that the proven brands are the way to go. I mean, you could say, well, I've got insurance for my stolen vehicle, but that doesn't get back your personal belongings a lot of times. It doesn't get back the inconvenience, and it's an indication of the company. Like I've said a million times, when you go into a store, how you're treated by the service department, it's a culture. It's going to be that way throughout the whole store. Or how you're treated in sales, it's going to be that way throughout the whole store. So my point is that vehicles, brands like those, don't do a good job. They don't really understand what's going on here. They come from a country that's living under different circumstances, and they don't have the same order of importance that we might have. Like I've said before, Toyota, Honda, Mazda, Subaru, they're the best brands that you're going to run into in terms of a car, and probably could add Ford to that if you were talking about a truck, for sure, in my opinion. But that's why I brought it up. We talk a lot about electric vehicles, but not much about self-driving vehicles. That's another interesting point I was thinking about this week. Recent poll that I saw showed that 68% of America is concerned about self-driving vehicles. That's up 13% from last year. They're worried that something can happen if you get one that's self-driving. And there have been some people killed, and there's some things to be concerned with. But some people would enjoy the benefit, and some possibly, most won't. That's okay. It's not a severely needed addition. I, for one, could never relax completely knowing the eyes aren't watching the road. I'm sorry, I just can't put my life in the hands of a machine. Just can't do it. I also don't want to pay for the advantage if it's an advantage, if it even is one. I don't want to pay for it. What is good about these vehicles is that they're not being shoved down your throats by the current government regime, unlike EVs that are being shoved down your throat. And just like the vaccination, those two things, they've just gone crazy with the vaccination. And you may believe in the vaccination. You may not believe in the vaccination. Your medical facts may go one way or the other. That's your right to decide. Not the government's job to tell us what to do in that case. We should be telling them they work for us. Forget that. They're not the king. They work for us. Anyway, so the thing about self-driving vehicles is, if you don't like them, you don't have to worry about it because you don't have to take one. It's not being pushed on us. Given a choice, I think car manufacturers can offer whatever they want as an option. I think they should be able to offer whatever. I think electric vehicles should be offered as an option, not pushed. I believe EV push alone is enough to vote in another regime. I think that's the one that really kills me. I was watching articles today on YouTube by a couple of firemen that are talking about fires from batteries on electric vehicles. And the one said that they worked on it with all the water they had in 2 trucks, and they couldn't put it out. That's serious stuff. That's not a little thing. It's not going to forgive you at your home. It's going to burn it down, period. And that's the thing you got to realize. Electric vehicles, if they catch on fire, will burn your house down. They're not going to put that fire out. Just think of those ships off the Azores Islands in 2021. 4,000 vehicles were on that ship. They couldn't put out the fire for 2 weeks, and it sank. There's nothing they could do about it. The article I was reading today was really, really critical about that, too. It wasn't just a YouTube thing. It was more of an article about how much water it takes. And I've said before, it takes 8,000 gallons of water. They claim it can take up to 40,000 gallons of water in the article I read. Depends on the fire. Depends on the battery. There's a lot of factors. Well, that makes sense that the battery might make a difference. But given a choice, even electric vehicles, if you want one, then buy one. But shouldn't be forced on everybody else to buy one. They're not doing what they think they're doing, bringing up EVs for the EV corner here. And I brought it up a little bit early because it kind of, in a comparison to self-driving vehicles. What about battery warranties on electric vehicles? That's another one I was reading about this week. It would seem all of the companies vary on their battery warranty. The best you'll get is 100,000 miles a year warranty on the battery. Those batteries are prorated. If you have a problem with one at, let's say, 6 years, you'll pay for a portion and they'll take care of the rest. It will kick in if your battery falls below 70% of capacity. None of the battery warranties cover the capacity if it's over 70%. Well, think about that. Have you had a phone that you could even operate on a daily basis that had a 70% battery? No. I know from working with Apple and having Apple phones, at about 85%, low 80%, that's the end of it for the phone. It doesn't last very long, and it's more of an aggravation, right? Some just cover the warranty for the standard 50,000 miles, too. A lot of them, there's no requirement for warranty on those batteries. So some of the manufacturers have a program of 100,000 miles, with all types of what ifs and there maybes and things like that. And it has to below 70% to be even considered as a bad battery. And then you would pay a portion of it after that, or 50,000 mile warranty. The 70% feature means that if your vehicle has a range of, let's say, we'll use the average. The average EV vehicle has a range of 250 miles. That's the average of all the vehicles. You'd be not warrantyable if your battery was at 75%. There would be no warranty to cover that. But your range would be down. And if you use your accessories like lights and air conditioning, things like that, it would mean your travel distance went from 250 miles down to 150 miles before you had to charge it. And you have to charge it the same amount as though it went 250 miles. It's just that the battery's not taking all of it as well. Right? Your phone battery gets to 85%, like I said, and it's dropped dead in no time flat. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And you could buy a new battery if you want to, if it gets to 75%, say, well, the heck with it, I'll just buy a new battery. Depending on the model, the price of a new battery in the U.S. is between $5,000 and $15,000. Now, they're complaining about tune-ups on gas vehicles, right? Tune-ups are $300. You could do 10 tune-ups and still be $10,000 less than the battery on an electric vehicle. Think about this. This is just, the whole program is so crazy, right? It's like when I talk about the safety, there's so many differences there. Yes, that's right. Let's say you hang on until the battery is at 70%. You keep the vehicle and you just find a way to stand with it and you keep it till it's 70%. You go to get a new battery and it's prorated based on how many years old it is. So you would still pay thousands of dollars in most cases. So even after they got down to 70%, let's say you were 7 years or 5 years into it, by the time you pay off based on a prorated situation, you're still going to pay thousands of dollars towards the battery. There's nothing to it. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? I keep adding to the list of reasons why EVs are bad, very bad. They are very bad, even after the issues. They cause the same problems that we've talked about in the past. They're still going on. They haven't fixed them over the last few years. There's nothing really improved much, right? And they don't do anything for the health of the planet. The health of the planet benefit from electric vehicles is zero. Nada. Zilch. No benefit if we all go to electric vehicles in America. Even if you got Russia and China and all the rest of the world to go with electric vehicles, it might make a difference of 0.5 degree. That's not going to do it. It's not, we've talked about it a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways you can prove it. CO2 is not the issue. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about the 3 trillion trees we have. They've now realized we have 3 trillion trees. Well, 3 trillion trees could handle 2 times the amount of CO2 that we produce right now. Nobody talks about that, though. That's not counting the foliage and the grass and the vines and the flowers and all that stuff, just the trees alone. And it's like, and here we want to give up our economy and our life and the health of the country when we could be using that money for other things that maybe do make a difference, like housing veterans and getting the homeless off the streets, right? And closing the border, or at least controlling the border. All these things we could be doing with that money, we're going to waste on electric vehicles that cost thousands and thousands more than a gas vehicle. And that's not mentioning all the safety issues we've talked about many times. When a gas vehicle catches on fire, it burns at about 1,500 degrees. So if you see a car on fire, it's about 1,500 degrees, like a regular fire. They come and put it out. The average electric vehicle burns at 5,000 degrees. That's why they can't put them out. They can reignite up to 3 times after you put them out. I mean, just think about it. This is crazy that we would put up with this as a country, as a humanity. I mean, it's as crazy as some of the other things that they talk about. I won't bring those up, but there's a bunch of other things that are just, completely trying to defeat science. But bury your head in the sand and don't listen. Anyway, moving right along. If you like the show, please take a couple of minutes and do a review on iTunes or Google Play, whichever you use. If you've already done a review, thank you very much, and a lot of you have. I've got some great reviews on there. I don't have anything bad. Don't forget to tell your friends and relatives about the podcast. They'll save dollars. If you do, they'll take advantage. They'll listen to the episode that works for them, and then you'll be a hero. That's what happens. And if you'd like some written material to carry with you when you're out shopping, then get a copy of The Informed Buyer. I don't know how many times I've talked about that. From Amazon Kindle or Barnes & Noble Nook. All the basics of what we talk about on your phone or on your smart pad, right on your phone, to make sure you don't skip any bases when you're buying a vehicle. We're talking about thousands of dollars you're spending, right? We're talking about the biggest expense for you other than your home. And I'm talking about $3 that might help you. $3. Download it from Kindle or whichever one, Barnes & Noble, for $3. Inflation hasn't affected it either. If you want something to carry with you, get it. It's $3, $3, right? That's 80 cents less than my Vendy of coffee from Starbucks. Just think about that. Just a quick note about a business I came across that is great, by the way. This is not a solicited ad. I'm not getting paid for doing this ad. But I ran into a business that I really think is worth talking about in the Central Florida area. Now, this guy will fix your watch, this shop, at a reasonable price, crazy reasonable price, or put a battery in it, or any of that stuff. And he won't gaslight you to buy a bunch of stuff. It's a little shop called Golden Time. It's right off from 50 on Bean Lane. Right off from 50 and almost downtown Orlando, down by just before, on 50, headed west, it'd be just before the Best Buy store on the right. Great place. Just a small place that actually fixes watches. Yeah, he actually does. Super guy. Name's Mario. Straight shooter. This is a business I thought I'd just mention quickly, and he didn't even ask me to mention him. It's not one of those things. I'm not getting paid for it, but I want you to know about it. If you got a watch or a piece of jewelry you got a problem with, go to Golden Time, and you won't be disappointed. He can fix the stuff. He's very, very, very good at a reasonable price. He will not take advantage of you. And that seems to be a lot of what happens nowadays, isn't it? Right? This week I was thinking about all the credit issues that come up from people during these tough times. And boy, there are tough times, right? You go to the grocery store and it'll wake you up in a hurry. I have to do my own grocery shopping because I'm single. And I go to the grocery store, and every time I go, it's getting worse and worse and worse. Not by a lot. It creeps up a little at a time. What I used to buy for $3 is now $6. They say inflation's only 30 or 40% total since it started. I think it's a lot more than that in some cases. I really do. I think it's like a used cars. It's up. You take 25% on a used car, we're talking about $3,000 or $4,000, right? But if you're going to talk about your credit and things like that, family health comes first, or at least it should, before you pay your bills, right? Unless you're independently wealthy, you should be considering your credit score, though, too, while this is going on. I mean, there's a lot of us that have had to put things on our credit cards because of these tough times, and maybe getting to the point where you're having trouble making the payments. Certainly many of us are going to be missing payments because we're out of work, laid off. I know they say they've created all these millions of jobs. No, they haven't. They're showing the people that want to back to work after COVID as jobs they produce. What are you going to do? Politicians, they're all alike. Montebanks, all of them. People are laid off, sick, businesses closed. Maybe it's a need to spread the peanut butter a little bit thinner. Your budget no longer works as is. So this can hurt your long-term position if you're without some planning. The selfish Congress and Senate only think about you paying your bills today, but these ridiculous situations affect you long after. This inflation is going to take years to straighten out. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. They might stop it from going up, but what's hard is moving it back from what it already went up from. That's the problem. Those of you who lost your government-mandated unemployment, but maybe your income hasn't changed, maybe it's just a change in what you have to put out. I don't know, maybe there's other things going on. I don't know. But if you're having problems making ends meet like you used to, one thing I will mention is to start getting concerned about your budget. Call you if you got a problem making payments, if you got a problem being late with things, and you're just doing it because you just don't have any money this month or this week, you're going to have to be late on your payment. Call the debtor. Let them know what's going on. Make a plan with them because it can directly affect your credit and how they report it if you let them know. They're not as quickly to sell you down the river if you let them know about it. They know what's going on. They know that you haven't skipped town or left. You got to remember, people that give you credit hear all kinds of stories. They don't know which ones are true and which ones aren't. I'll tell you, there's no guarantees it's going to help you if you call them. But I'll guarantee this, it won't hurt you. And most of the time, it'll help you. They're there to help you. It's like the banks. They'll help you if they can. What about credit score and financing a vehicle? Low or high can have a dramatic effect on your financial life and your monthly payment. It's so important when buying a vehicle. Here are the basic credit score areas and how they can affect you financially. The first credit score area is people that's FICO score is under 500. Those people, almost all of them, have to go to a buy here, pay here to buy a vehicle. Fluctuations in credit won't affect it quite so much because it's already at the bottom. It's not going to make any difference. And it's not the way you want to go to buy a vehicle, buy here, pay here, but it's certainly better than nothing, right? Then there's the 501 to 580 approximately. These are my breakdowns. Doesn't mean I'm exactly to the point, but I think these are what my experiences run into. They're financeable, but what the industry calls secondary. More bad credit or dropping the score can push those people into buy here, pay here. They're very sensitive to anything else going bad in their credit. Because if you get pushed below that area, now you're buy here, pay here, that's it. Say too much bad about it, it's better than nothing, but it's expensive and it's not a lot better than nothing. Then you got the 581 to 650. Very common range, right? Low 600s. Higher bank rate, you're going to have a higher bank rate, often requires stipulations and proof. Stipulations meaning that they want proof that you've been living where you live for a while. They want proof that you've been on the job for a while, or they might want both because they're not sure that you can pay, but they're going to take a chance if you're someone that's stable and got a good job and you're sticking with your job and that kind of stuff. That's why I've talked about many times when you're going to get credit or when you're going to talk to a creditor to get a letter from your employer saying how valuable you are to them or what a good employee you've been. And that makes a difference to a banker. I'm telling you, you think it doesn't, but because it's not written in the rules when they loan money, but it is true. It is absolutely true that it does make a difference. And I've seen it make a difference on people buying a vehicle, especially when they're in the secondary area, right? Then the next group would be the 651 to 700. Not bad credit at all, but not the best. Can be approved without unusual circumstances like zero down. And sometimes if you're at a 675, they're not going to do a vehicle with nothing down at all. Sometimes they might even do that, but sometimes they won't. Then the 701 to 750 is considered good credit. That's good credit. And over 750 is great credit. I think credit scores go up to 850. I think they can go to. Once you're in the sevens, you're probably approvable in most situations, as long as you have the ability to pay people. Ask me quite often about how it is determined and what they do about it. But, when it comes to having a score of 700, you're going to be good, but not if you can't pay for it. They're not going to lend you money that you can't pay back, no matter how good your credit is. You've got to have a way of paying. With the current business and climate and the economy, we all need to protect our credit scores if possible. It's really important. This is not something to take lightly. A couple of late payments can have an effect on your credit score. No kidding. The factors that determine credit score are primarily your payment history, how well you've paid people, your amount of debt, how much you owe. If you owe a lot of money, that hurts your credit score. Your amount of experience, how many loans have you paid off? Well, according to the agreement. Well, that helps. And your available unused credit, that affects your score. And you'd think it would be a positive thing. It isn't. Nope. Available unused credit is not something that helps you. There are other factors that affect the final decision, like time on the job and your address, like I talked about, stipulations. These have a bigger effect on the poor credit, but they affect credit allowances to some effect on all loans. So they still want to know that you have a job, even if you have a 750 Beacon. They still want to know you're going to be able to pay them. Credit can affect your car insurance premiums as well. We've talked about this on other episodes. Car insurance prices you'd think would be determined by your history, speeding tickets and all that. And although they have an effect, nothing affects your car insurance rate price more than your credit score. I don't know why that is or why they use that. I think it has something to do with it determines the personality of the person or whatever. I know you'd have to ask them, but that's the truth. Some states have even had to go to outlaw it. There's a couple of states that make it illegal to do that. They still do it because most insurance companies are more in one state, so they just call the other state and ask them to do it. And then, it's like, it's no big deal. They still do it. The things to do to raise your score or protect it, in my opinion, are pretty cut and dry. And I'll tell you, this is an opinion list I'm going to give you. It's only a list from my experience. There is no manual to this on how to have better credit or how to improve your credit. But this is what my experience has showed me with other people buying cars and being in the industry for a long time and looking at thousands of credit, and I'm dealing with my own credit in my regular life, but looking at other credit. Raising it in many cases in the future, just keep it from dropping during these tough times is what we're trying to do. You may not be able to get your credit up during these tough times, but at least keep it the same. If you have a number of credit cards, that's one of them that was on the list before, right? You're available on used credit. If you have a bunch of credit cards that are empty, get rid of them. You might keep one credit card, get rid of the rest. Actually close them out, and I mean completely cancel it with a company to get it off your credit report. Cutting them up and throwing them in the garbage will not help. You must completely cancel with the company, usually by phone or by written request. Just knowing the card isn't with you anymore, it still shows on your credit report, though. Doesn't make any difference. I remember what I went through when I wanted to get rid of Discover because of their ridiculous interest rates for people with good credit. Crazy. I had to write all kinds of letters and argue with them, get them off my back. It's crazy. It was really a hard time. And you got to get it off, and now it's off my credit. I don't have it. And I have as many things off my credit score as I can. I don't have any credit cards that I don't use. And I have good credit, I could, because it's not going to change my score. But if you want to protect your score, get rid of the credit you don't use. Get rid of it. It's not, people think, well, if I have credit cards with, shows I didn't use them, that's good for my credit. No, it's not. It's not what you think. It does not help your credit. Having a lot of ability to accumulate debt doesn't help you. The reason is that too much available credit scares the lender, especially in this economy. The credit bureau and lenders are afraid you'll start to use the credit available because you have to, and they wonder where they'll fall on your payment list. If it came down to making choices, if it comes down to making choices, maybe you're going to pay that credit card before you pay them. That's what they're thinking. They don't want you to be in a position where you can spend money that you don't have when you owe them money. No, that hurts your credit score. For sure. Number 2, pay your bills on time. It's not like being late to a doctor's appointment. Don't be late. Don't let your credit card balances get too high. Responsible borrowing affects credit, being responsible. But if you can't, let's say you have a temporary problem like no pay or less pay. Call the lender and tell them. Don't hide it. Say, hey, look, I'm in a jam. We got our hours cut for a few months. Ask for help. Is there anything you can do to help me? Because I don't want to I want to pay, but I have to eat and stuff too. Maybe a smaller payment now and a bigger payment later, or a couple of payments refactored into the loan. What ideas can your loan source come up with? Did I have any? That's another thing you can do. Another one, pay off any collections, any bill at all, or arrange for paying in the future. Bargain for time. So let's say you got a bunch of doctor bills that are in the credit bureau, they affect your credit. Not as much as a bad credit card, but they still affect it. You want to make a plan to pay them, $10 a month or whatever. Make believe me, an attempt to pay and paying a small payment a month is almost like you didn't have them. It really can help. Another one, successful paying many types of credit. So if you've got credit on your credit bureau, it's good to have many different types. You've paid off a car before. You've paid off a credit card. You have a mortgage. Those all tell a different story about you, right? And so that adds to your viability as a credit person, credit source. Like I said before, a few types of credit you pay on time, the more there are, the better off you are. If you're late at all now, why would they think you could afford to buy something else? Think about that. You got late credit cards on your credit bureau and late on your car loan, and you're in there trying to borrow more money. What would make them think you could pay any more money? You can't make the payments you got now. That's why it's so important to pay on time. If you're struggling a little, try to stay up to date with as many as possible. Let's say you have 4 payments you have to make every month. Try to keep 3 of them up to date and get time on the other one. Talk to all the lenders. Which one is the most flexible? Call all 4 of them. I'm having a problem. What can you do to help me? Maybe there's one of those 4 that will say, okay, look, we'll give you a couple of months without making a payment. Now you can use that money you would have sent that one to pay the other ones on time. You're protecting your credit again. Another one is rent. Sometimes you can use rent. I know people have done this. They give you time, a couple of months. Let's say that your landlord says, okay, look, I'll skip your rent for 2 months, and then we'll add 25% of the amount to your next 4 months. So let's say you're paying $800 a month rent, right? And he skips $1,600. So for 2 months, that's $1,600, $800 a month. So he adds $400 to the next 4 months. So you're paying $1,200 those next 4 months, but you had 2 months without any rent. Now, if you use that money smartly and didn't go out and waste it on going out to eat and dinner and going to the movies, or partying, if you took that money and you used it to pay bills until you get back on your feet, that would be a good thing. Yeah, you skip a month or 2 and pay it back over the next 4, or skip 1 month, pay it back over the next 4. If they'll do that, even it's another way to keep your payments up with the credit bureau. Got to remember, rent doesn't report to the credit bureau like credit cards do. They report, but it has to be, I think it's a longer period. If you've not been paying rent under the federal mandate of rent payment, I have no suggestions to help you, because I can't help you. If you haven't been paying rent and all of a sudden you have to, like the rest of us, I don't know what to tell you. I have no advice. Don't apply for credit cards or lines of credit unless you absolutely need them. Don't say, well, there's a good credit card. Let's apply to get that credit card. That's a good deal. No, don't do that. Don't do that. That does not help you. Nope. Especially if you're going through a rough time. Remember that moving your address or your job has a credit effect. Less time, it either means more risk to the banks. During the tough times, stay put, both home and job if you can. This is not a time to change jobs unless there's a really good reason, right? Flexibility of the lending institution can be determined by these things that I just listed. I made for you. Like I said, just your job change could make a difference. The opposite of these really affect the credit, like collection from a doctor bill, but they're not, bad unless you have numerous ones, but too many credit cards, if your mortgage payments are late, those are things that are having a big effect on you. Another thing that affects you is child support. If you're not paying your child support, in some states, and I think Florida's one of them, if you're behind on your child support, you're out on the credit area. They won't lend you any money. Nobody. Yep, you're ineligible then. Repossession charge-offs by a lender that gave up on trying to collect. They don't go away. Let's say the lender doesn't call you anymore because they repossessed your car for what you owed. Don't think that goes away. Oh, in 3 years I'm clear. No, you're not. There's no statute of limitations on that stuff. No, you're not cleared at all. That'll show up for a long time. So avoiding that is imperative. And doubling any of them just puts you right out in the street, right? Repo is severe, but you get 2 repos, man, that's bad. And if you in a couple year time, that's just the end. Your credit chances are just shot out the window. And that's why you got to start thinking about it when you're not in trouble, before you get into trouble, before you have problems. The point is you can fix or defend your score, or you can ruin it. It's up to you 100%. Number one, communicate with your lenders. Too much communication is way better than not enough. Talk to them. Let them know what's going on. It can't hurt you. Got to remember that. Even if they won't help you, it can't hurt you that you called and tried. Number two, pay as many debts on time as possible by getting up a postponement on one. Talk to them all and see who's the most flexible. Maybe somebody will help you, and that way you could be on time with most and have one late payment, which who knows what the explanation is you could use later. But if you have all different ones each month that are late, that's not good. That tells you were late on everything, and that spills the beans right there, right? Another one, close out whatever credit cards you can. Completely cancel them. Don't think that having empty credit cards is a good thing. I don't care what anybody tells you. That is not true. That is not good for you. Having one credit card, sure. Having one mortgage, sure. Having one car loan, sure. Having 3 credit cards that are empty, all that does is make anybody else that wants to lend you money nervous. That's all that does. Work out a new budget based on where you are now with any changes in your life. Now. Do it now. Not later. Do it now. Before you get, even if you're starting to get tough, even if you're starting to get a little crazy with the credit, because you got to take your kids to the doctor. You got to go to the doctor. You got to eat. You have to buy food. Those things come first. So don't just stand and say there's nothing we can do. Yes, there is things you can do. You can get a hold of these people and talk with them and try to work together. There's ways around this. It's not 100%, but it's certainly better than just ignoring it. Well, that's Deal Talk for this week. If you have a question or request or even a comment, please call or email me, 407-801-4071. That's 407-801-4071. That's an answer mail. Or you can email me. I have a couple of email addresses. I have dealtalkpodcast@gmail.com, and I have dealtalk@mail.com. Both of those. You can send one to either one, and I'll get it, and you'll hear from me quick. Please don't forget to do a review and do yourself a favor by getting a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon or Nook. Spend the $3. I'm telling you. Spend the $3 and get it. If you're not happy, I'll send your $3 back. You let me know. It's worth $3 all day. It's just crazy not to have it. Like I mentioned before, tell your friends and relatives. When they save big, they'll thank you. However I can help you, contact me and you'll hear from me. Everybody does. And remember, every payment you get should be CPI, complete payment information. Amount, months, rate, any required down payment to get to those terms. Every time they quote you a payment, you get that information. Every time. And if you're going to do your own financing, every price you get should be all in. Don't take those prices where they say, well, $20,000 plus fees. No. Give me the price with everything in it. The tax, the tag, the dealer fee, any options, every total thing. I want the OTD out the door.